Your first investigation as a surveillance analyst begins with a flagged anomaly in the urban grid feeds. Case file ID 47382. You log into the monitoring system and access the central database to retrieve the initial anomaly report. The log entry shows a 2-hour window of flagged surveillance feeds, each timestamped and logged for review. You review the monitoring report, noting the anomaly count and the specific cameras involved in the flagged activity. The surveillance feeds display routine urban scenes, but one feed shows a consistent anomaly pattern over time. Your supervisor briefs you on the anomaly, emphasizing the need for a thorough trace and immediate reporting. The case file contains a trace summary showing 5 data hops leading to an endpoint in the suburban grid. You cross-reference the access logs, checking login times and durations for consistency with the anomaly timeline. You document each step of the initial review, creating a detailed log entry for the investigation record. The keyboard reflects the routine of data entry, each keystroke logged into the system for accountability. The supervisor highlights a surveillance feed where a familiar face is detected, prompting deeper analysis of the trace. You replay the feed to confirm the familiar pattern, logging the exact timestamp and feed identifier. You create a visual map of the anomaly, showing how data hops connect across different surveillance points. Authority pressure mounts as the supervisor reminds you of reporting deadlines and the sensitivity of the findings. The server room operates silently, housing the data that fuels the monitoring network and investigation systems. You prepare the draft report, saving it with proper identifiers and ensuring it is logged in the system. You reflect on the first trace, noting that the endpoint matches a location with prior investigation records. You create a physical record of the log entry, adding it to the case file for backup and audit purposes. With the briefing complete, you are left to monitor the feeds and follow the data hops as the anomaly deepens. You close the assignment phase and initiate the trace, setting up the terminal for continuous feed monitoring and data logging. You begin monitoring the feeds, noting each live timestamp and preparing to log any anomalies detected. The server infrastructure supports the feed data, ensuring continuous operation for the surveillance network monitoring. You flag the first data hop in the trace, logging the feed identifier and the movement pattern for analysis. You create a log entry with timestamp 1603, documenting the initial hop count and endpoint of the anomaly. Authority oversight confirms the trace phase, emphasizing the need for detailed monitoring reports and systematic logs. You enter the trace phase, tasked with monitoring feeds and following data hops as the anomaly deepens. You detect a familiar pattern on feed CAM-47, prompting immediate logging and cross-reference with prior records. The night shift increases isolation, with you monitoring continuously without any interruption from fellow analysts. You visualize the anomaly path, showing 3 data hops that link disparate surveillance points in the network. The system alerts you to another anomaly, increasing the hop count to 4 and deepening the investigation. Each keystroke is deliberate, ensuring you log every step to maintain full accountability in the trace process. You check access logs for user IDs linked to the anomaly, finding matches that require further review. The trace endpoint is identified as a secured facility, prompting preparation of a preliminary report for authority. You begin drafting the report, including feed counts, flag details, and the anomaly map for evaluation. You save the draft with identifier trace_report_001, ensuring it is logged in the system for audit. Time passes as you monitor, with the late hour adding pressure to complete the trace before deadlines. You verify the monitoring report, noting that 12 feeds have been flagged with anomalies requiring analysis. Authority presence is felt without direct contact, reminding you of the institutional weight behind the investigation. You prepare the trace data for submission, exporting it in a standard format for review by authorities. You conclude the initial trace, ready to move into analysis with the accumulated data and logged steps. You continue monitoring the flagged surveillance feeds, noting that each anomaly correlates with specific user IDs in the access logs. The anomaly deepens as the figure's movement pattern matches a profile previously logged in the system database. You log the 13th anomaly instance, ensuring the entry includes precise timestamps and cross-references to prior reports. Authority pressure mounts as the supervisor's indirect presence reminds you to handle the evidence with extreme caution. The late hour is marked by the cold coffee, a silent witness to the prolonged monitoring and investigation. You identify 3 user IDs that access the flagged feeds during anomaly periods, requiring further investigation into their roles. The anomaly path now includes 5 data hops, linking surveillance points across different zones in the network. Each keystroke confirms another step in the trace, building a detailed log for the impending analysis phase. The system alerts you to a 14th anomaly, increasing the urgency to complete the trace before morning. You export the trace summary, including all hops and endpoints, preparing it for the upcoming analysis stage. You begin drafting the final trace report, compiling feed counts, anomaly instances, and user ID matches for review. The monitoring room is empty except for you, emphasizing the solitude and weight of the investigation. You verify the monitoring report, ensuring that each flag is documented with timestamps and feed identifiers. Time is running out as the deadline for submission approaches, adding pressure to finalize the trace data. You conclude the trace phase, having logged 30 anomalies and prepared the data for in-depth analysis. You move into the analysis phase, where connections are mapped and authority pressure intensifies over the evidence. You begin mapping the connections between anomalies, cross-referencing reports to identify patterns that point to a familiar face. The map reveals clusters of activity, suggesting coordinated access that aligns with known protocols in the system. Your reflection shows the concentration required to analyze the data. As the evidence becomes increasingly uncomfortable, you draft the analysis report, including key findings that may trigger authority intervention due to the sensitive nature. You refine the analysis report, cross-referencing 30 anomaly instances with access logs to confirm user ID patterns. The diagram visualizes the clustered activity, revealing coordinated access that matches known surveillance protocols in the system. You cross-reference the access log, finding that user ID matches align with anomaly occurrences, deepening the investigation's scope. You document the sensitive implications, noting that the evidence points to internal involvement, which may trigger authority intervention. The supervisor's message increases pressure, reminding you of the deadline and the need for discretion in the analysis. The empty room emphasizes the solitude of your investigation, with only the glow of monitors breaking the darkness. You expand the connection map, incorporating 5 new anomalies that further solidify the pattern of coordinated surveillance activity. You identify a key user ID with high confidence, linking it directly to multiple anomaly flags across different surveillance feeds. You hesitate, then include a note warning of authority conflicts, as the evidence implicates familiar protocols within the system. Time is dwindling as the clock approaches 4 a.m., adding urgency to finalize the analysis before submission. You back up the analysis report, ensuring that all data, including 35 anomalies, is securely stored for review. The supervisor observes your work, increasing the pressure as you prepare to present the uncomfortable findings from the analysis. You log the analysis progress, noting that the draft is ready, but requires authority approval due to its sensitive nature. Your hands show the strain of the investigation, with the reflection revealing the weight of documenting authority-sensitive evidence. You summarize the analysis, highlighting 12 key points that outline the coordinated access and its implications for the system. You officially close the analysis phase, recording the completion with your credentials and preparing for the submission stage. You consolidate the analysis materials, ensuring that every document, from access logs to maps, is ready for institutional review. The active feeds continue to stream data, a reminder of the ongoing monitoring as you transition from analysis to submission. You initiate the submission process, selecting the final analysis folder for upload to the authority's review system. You prepare to submit the report, facing the institutional consequences as the evidence points to a familiar face in the system. You now face the submission phase, where the report must be delivered and the institutional consequences acknowledged. You confirm the submission, sending the report with 35 documented anomalies to the authority's review queue at 4:02 a.m. The log records the submission event, adding a timestamp and your analyst ID to the permanent system history. You receive an automated acknowledgement, indicating that the authority has the report and a review is pending, heightening the tension. The supervisor directly addresses you, emphasizing the need to discuss the sensitive evidence and its potential institutional impact. The surveillance feeds continue to run, but with increased redaction, reflecting the authority's control over the data you investigated. You file the report and all supporting documents into the archived cases directory, ensuring they are stored but not easily accessed. You close the investigation log, summarizing the case closure with a note that all anomalies were documented and reported. A heavy silence fills the monitoring room, underscoring the weight of the investigation and the unresolved authority conflicts. The supervisor delivers review notes, with red highlights indicating areas of concern and pressure to downplay the findings. You document the authorities' pushback in a private log, noting the attempt to bury the evidence of familiar protocol breaches. Time passes slowly as the early morning hours drag on, amplifying the pressure from the institutional silence and review. You secure a backup of the investigation data, ensuring that even if buried, the evidence remains preserved off the main system. You end your monitoring session, logging out after over 8 hours of investigation, with the case officially closed but unresolved. The workstation sits idle, a silent testament to the investigation that exposed uncomfortable truths within the surveillance authority. You leave the monitoring room, carrying the burden of the investigation and the knowledge that the authority wants it forgotten. The door seals the room, symbolizing the end of your involvement, but the data and logs continue to exist in silence. The servers hum and blink, a constant reminder of the ongoing monitoring and the buried anomalies within the system. You are monitored as you leave, a final irony that the surveillance system you investigated is now watching you depart. You step outside, into the dawn, with the surveillance cameras still active, a lasting symbol of the authority and the investigation's silence.